Thanks for tuning in to Hobbs and Horror Movie Review Podcast.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Hobbs and Horror. I'm Eric.
He's sliding in and out my ass like he's cleaning out gutters. Dick bigger than a stick of butter. All right.
What?
I don't know. I'm Jason.
I'm Gavin. All right.
Jason had found a new song to love, so
Oh, yeah.
that's what you got a little rendition of there.
Yeah. Beautiful
Big
singing
dick,
voice.
big dick.
So we're back with another episode. Our movie for the day was All Eyes, rocking in at a 5.4 IMDb rating. Way too low.
Wow, way too low.
Yeah,
I don't know about way. I would say
think it
maybe
was
way too low.
I think that's pretty low.
Yeah,
That is low.
it is
Yeah.
low for sure.
So, Gavin, you want to kick it off with what this movie's about?
Yeah, so as always, I would recommend that people watch the movie before listening to this. And I'm going to stress that especially for this movie because what you see in the beginning of the movie is not what you see later on in the movie. So if you haven't seen it, we're going to completely give it away. So definitely watch it. But anyway, so assuming you have, the plot is you have Alan, who is a podcaster, and he has a show where he interviews strange people who see aliens and ghosts and that kind of thing. And it goes horribly wrong when one of his guests, who is clearly schizophrenic or something like that, thinks they see something, but it's actually a harmless person, and it goes awry. So Alan loses his podcast, and to redeem himself, he answers a fan letter that makes him go out to the middle of nowhere, Oklahoma, to capture a monster. And then things go horribly wrong again, but in a very different way.
Perfect.
Yeah.
So, what's everybody's initial thoughts of this movie?
Well, I found this movie based on a Facebook post in a horror group that someone. Yeah.
Was it you?
No. No. But I found it was like one post, and it was like somebody, I don't even remember what they said about it, but you know, what I'll do is I'll look at the comments, and if there's enough good people saying like, oh yeah, this was good, then I'll check it out. And that was one of them. And I don't know, I feel like this movie needs a little more attention, and that's why I decided to use this as my pick, because like, Gav, you've never heard of it before.
I had not heard of it, no.
And it's been out for what, 2 years?
Sure.
Something like that. So, you know, I thought this would be a real good kind of hidden gem. I love the fact that this movie, it's low budget. You can tell it's low budget, but they really do a good job with it.
Yeah.
With what they have. And I don't know if you noticed this, Gavin, but throughout the movie, there are so many things left to the imagination.
Yes.
And I appreciate that.
Yes.
Not only, obviously there's budget concerns too. There's a low budget movie. They can't show a lot of things. But I felt like when you leave it up to the imagination, it's so much better many times.
I agree. So if you're on Letterboxd, like the top review on Letterboxd says something to the effect of, my thoughts about this movie are the same thoughts I had the first time I saw Titanic. There are not enough monsters.
What about Titanic 2 or Titanic 3?
I don't know. But, so I think that person thought it was a weakness of the movie, but I agree with you in that I think it was a strength.
Yeah.
Correct me if I'm wrong. We only really see like the monster's hand.
Well, you do see the monster, but it's really blurry at the end. And it's only for like a very brief.
Yeah, we never get a really clear shot.
No.
But I think that works in the movie's favor. And we also never see the other team. I don't know if they're scientists, government agents, or whatever they're supposed to be.
Yeah.
We never actually see them. But I feel like this works in the movie's favor, not just because of the budget limitations, but because it does leave it open of how much of this is Don being crazy,
right,
or this all being a hoax. Because if you saw the monster, like as soon as they went out to the woods, oh, here's the monster.
Right.
You lose that. You lose that thing where all of a sudden, like, okay, Don is clearly the monster hunter, and we don't know that at first. We'd like to think, if we're watching a horror movie, hopefully a monster shows up, but we don't know. Like, it could just be this guy going through grief and having delusions.
Yeah.
And I want to add that I think, you guys talk about how they did certain things because of budget constraints. Like maybe we didn't see the monster as much because of the budget that they had to make this movie. But I feel like the way they did it, it really did not take anything away from the movie. The movie if they had thrown the monster in there at the end, you'd been like, whoa, that was really awesome. But I don't feel like I got shafted by the lack of that in the movie.
Right.
Yeah, not at all. I would rather you set it up so there's always the fear of the monster than showing us the monster and failing.
Right.
And not to say that they would fail. I mean, they could have made a great monster, but I don't know that. And that's a risk you run.
Yeah. And I was impressed by the fact that like there really was hardly any special effects in this movie.
Right.
I mean, hardly at all. I mean, and if you think about it, most of the movie, nothing really happens.
Right.
It's literally just this, he shows up at the guy's house. And a lot of it, Gav, you kind of pointed this out when we were watching it, like how much you really like that Don character.
Very much. Yeah.
And I think that he really, the interactions between him and the douchey podcast host guy, which I did not find him believable as being a successful podcaster, maybe, but I mean, obviously we're not.
Yeah, right.
But it's like he just seemed like a douchey character to me. He didn't seem charismatic at all.
So just to sidestep this, I wanted to bring this up, but only you can address this.
Okay.
You're the expert here.
Oh, Jesus.
Because,
that scares me.
No. Because you have, for a long time, I don't know if you still do, but for a long time, you did listen to radio shows with Art Bell and weird ass stuff like that.
Yeah.
And so, if you don't find this guy believable, you would know what that sort of thing should sound like.
Yeah, I mean, I remember there's a few that really stick out in my head. I don't want to derail this too much.
No, but I mean, I'd give you an idea. I'm assuming that this character was in some way inspired by that kind of radio program.
Yeah, there is actually an episode. Like I said, I don't want to derail too much, but I want to mention this. There was a guy who called in to Coast AM one night, and this was so I used to work security for the listeners, and I would sit all night and I would listen to Coast AM every single night for probably 12 years. And the one that sticks out to me that was the funniest, I cracked up so hard. Guy calls in and says, I have a dinosaur trapped in my house in a cage. And apparently he caught this dinosaur by throwing a towel over it and wrestling it to the ground. And he got it into like a kennel of some kind. So, Art Bell, or I think it was George Norrie, was like, oh my God, you got it. We got to get, you've got to call somebody. You got to get like a professor or like somebody to see this thing. So the guy's like, well, do you want to hear it? Do you want to hear it? And he's like, yeah. He's like, hold on. And you can hear him kind of like walking down the stairs and everything. And it sounded exactly what a toy dinosaur roar. And I'm just like cracking up. And then he was supposed to meet this professor guy at a Taco Bell.
Of all places.
He's supposed to meet, and then he supposedly got back there and it had escaped. The front door was open and the cage was open and the dinosaur was gone. So we'll never know for sure whether that guy actually had a dinosaur.
Yeah, but I'm just saying it's like a similar concept where I'm sure that George Norrie, Art Bell, or whoever, I mean, they probably think most of the callers are nuts.
Oh, yeah.
But they go with it.
Yep.
They're just like, we're going to play this as if we're totally on your side here.
Yep.
And that's the same thing that set it up here.
Mm-hmm.
So it's that kind of thing. But this guy, I don't know how much of this is him acting and how much is just the way that this actor comes across. I don't know. This is pretty much his only film role, so there's like really no way to compare.
Are you talking about Don?
Not Don, the main character.
Oh, okay.
Like this is really the only thing he's done, and so I mean I should say a good credit to him for carrying a movie that he doesn't have a background in. Well, maybe he does. Maybe he's a theater actor. I don't know, but he doesn't have a movie background. Mm-hmm. But yeah, like I don't know because he does come across as douchey and unsympathetic.
Yeah.
And I think to some degree, like obviously, like he's supposed to because Don calls him out on that and is like, "I don't believe in your act."
Yeah.
But I don't know because even then later when he's with Don and he's not on the air, he still kind of comes across as douchey.
He does, yeah.
So like I don't know how much this is an act or this is just who he is.
Yeah, yeah.
I thought it was really kind of because you guys are talking about these radio shows too. I thought it was a really great element that they brought that radio type show into the show. And I don't know that they did a really good job with this in this movie, but there is a certain like horror aspect to just that kind of show.
Like paranormal.
Yeah, because if these people are crazy, like obviously the guy more than likely did not have a dinosaur down in his basement.
You don't know that.
Right, I don't know that, and that's why I say, but he probably
we'll never know because
he probably did not. But just the idea that these radio hosts or podcast hosts, whatever they are playing on the craziness of these people, their delusions or whatever. That can be a really scary thing.
Yeah.
And I really thought that was an angle they were going to take within this movie, and I wish they would have, because I think that would have added a whole nother element to it.
Yeah, that's the thing. What I really like and why I gave like the warning up front, which I don't normally give explicitly, is because the first 5 or 10 minutes of the movie sets up what could be an extremely different movie than what you get.
Right, exactly.
And they don't follow along with that. It could be an entire movie of just him running this podcast, and that could have been like the final act. It could have been like, oh, here's what happens when you like encourage people's bad behavior.
Yeah.
But they didn't do that.
Well, and it hit home for me too because, we, as you know, like we had two listeners take their own lives after watching Quigley. So
wow.
Sorry.
Wow. I didn't know where that was going to go. Wow. Yes. Now that you say that, I do recall.
You do recall the two listeners.
I do recall that we encouraged people to watch Quigley, and now we have 2 fewer listeners.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, jeez.
I mean, it is what it is, though. You gotta soldier on.
Yeah. So I have things I want to say. There's so many things that I really liked about this movie. So many things.
Yeah.
One, and I said this while we were watching it. I love that the movie is a romance disguised as a horror movie, and I kind of said it jokingly when we were watching it, but it's true. It's really true at the same time because, like, this is Don's love story. This is him, he's an emotional guy who hides it behind his tough cowboy image, but it's everything he's doing in this movie he's doing in memory of his wife. That's always in the background. So it's kind of cool, like when you realize how much he hates Alan, but yet he loves his wife more than he hates Alan. And like, so that's cool. And the actor who plays Don, and I'm sorry I don't know his name, but the actor who plays Don, like, it's very good.
Yeah.
Like, he nailed it.
Yeah, he's convincing in every way.
Yeah, there was so much like humor in this movie too that just is, and Don, that character is responsible for most of it.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it's
definitely the strength of the movie.
Yeah. I mean, he may not be the main character, but he is definitely the best character in the movie.
Yeah.
And what was I going to say about the horse? There's a horse.
There's a horse
that shows up, and it's like he claims that it showed up one day, and so he built a fence around it. And but when he cries, when he cries because the horse is gone the next day.
Yeah.
I loved it.
Yeah, like there's a story there, and I don't know what it is, what we're supposed to take from that. I mean, obviously he cares more for the horse than he admits. Does that mean that it was actually his wife's horse and he just lied about it, or
well, this is what
does he just get attached to things easier than he wants to believe? I don't know.
Yeah, and this is where how they leave a lot of things to the imagination.
Yeah,
like. Another part that just came to mind to me was when he's about to explain really why he was going to try to kill the monster.
Right.
And then he gets harpooned through the chest.
Yeah.
And we never find out.
We never find out.
It's all like there's so much in this movie that is left to your imagination.
Yeah. But again, it works.
It works.
Like it should be frustrating that like you're like, oh, we're going to find out this key piece of information and then we don't. But I'm not like mad about it.
No.
Like I feel like, oh, you added another level of mystery that, makes me curious, but not angry curious.
Yeah.
Just more like, oh, there was another layer to this. So I feel like that's probably hard to do, but they did it.
Mm-hmm.
And if I had to give a bit beef with this movie, I felt that the only thing is that I think they had, like one of you said, that this is almost 3 movies in one.
Yes.
And I felt like what they did is they set up for a really good movie 3 times, and then they completely pivoted over to like movie 2. So like you said, the introduction of it with him having the podcast and the guy killing whoever was down in his basement. That was a really good setup for a really good story. But then they kind of completely pivoted over to introducing Don. And then Don was a really, really good story. And then they killed Don off. And then they turned it into this booby trap thing.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I'm happy with the way it's done. Like, I'm not mad about it. But they could. Like I said before, like the first part, you could have made this the story of this guy who's a podcaster who's increasingly taking advantage of his listeners. And then it ends with this tragedy. You could do that. The second one, there's, entire probably subgenres of people monster hunting. Obviously, there's Bigfoot movies.
Yeah.
And then, then the third part is, the character, Alan calls it the escape room from hell.
Yep.
But really, like, the Saw movies are kind of like that. The Collector is kind of like that. Not to the same, like, this isn't that. This doesn't fall into that whole torture porn thing.
Right.
But the whole idea of being in a place where, like, you have to defeat the traps, that is a whole thing in itself.
Yeah.
So you're absolutely right that each one of these could have been its own movie. But I'm not mad that they did it like this, where each time you think you've figured out, oh, this is going to be the story. No.
I'm not mad about it either, because in the end it was all really good.
Yeah.
But the problem with it was that it kind of, like, towards the end of each segment, it was really starting to suck you into that concept.
Mm-hmm.
And then it switched.
Mm-hmm.
And you're like, so now when I look back at it, I look at it as, well, God, it would have been really cool to see more closure on that part, and more closure on that part, and more closure on that part. And they just kind of took it all and slammed it into, I mean, there was too much going on in the movie, and it was all really good, but it was too much in too short of a time.
I agree. Like, this would be super cliche to do this. So, like, I'm kind of glad they didn't do it. But Don being the best character, it would have been cool for him to have not been dead and then kind of come back later on in the booby trap part and being like, oh, it's a horror movie, so I'm not really dead. I just got harpooned in the chest.
Right.
And then he, like, becomes the hero and pulls through. Like, that would have been cool to kind of bring him back and tie those two segments together more. But yeah, that is sort of like going against what you expect, because that's how horror movies work.
Yeah.
Is that people aren't necessarily dead until you see them dead.
Yeah. I mean, if you were to expect everything, it wouldn't be a very fun movie to watch.
Yeah.
So
that's true, but I just feel like as soon as they had something going, they kind of switched gears, and that was a little disappointing, because I think they had, like, this is written great. Like, the story behind it is amazing, but it's just like I felt like I kind of got cheated on every little section. I would have liked to see more they could have made this movie 6 hours long.
Ooh.
They were easily,
That's high praise.
You know what my favorite scene in this movie
Like
was?
I don't want it to be 6
It's
hours
always
long,
long.
but it's always good to feel like you want more.
Yeah.
Yeah. What's your favorite scene, Jason?
I'm really embarrassed to say this because there's so much good scenes in this movie, but literally, it's such a stupid scene when the guy shows up at the farm and he looks at the horse and the horse looks at him and they have a moment.
It's not stupid.
I don't know why, but that is my favorite fucking scene.
I love that they did that.
I do too. I mean, I feel like moments like that when they do stuff like that in movies where it's almost just like it kind of is a good signal that that this movie they really thought a lot about it.
They thought about it, and they're kind of like winking at the audience.
Yeah,
because like when you're watching it as a movie, like it's a funny little moment.
Mm-hmm.
But like you got to think like when they're putting this together, when Alan's like looking back at the horse the second time, and he's like, "Oh, the horse just looked at me."
Yeah.
Like when they're filming that, he's probably not actually looking at a horse,
Right?
So he has to like pretend
Uh-huh.
that he just made this connection with a horse.
Yeah, it was just such a random thing to throw in there, and I just love stuff like that. It's like that one scene that I don't remember what movie we watched where the guy's like, "Look what I can do."
Yes.
What was that?
Oh,
Do you remember?
crap. Yes, but
It was a recent.
I mean, it's Patrick Warburton
yeah.
doing the thing. It's in an office and everybody's getting killed.
Yeah.
That was the butt one, wasn't it?
Not Butt Boy, the other one. It was Bad Milo.
Bad Milo.
Bad
Yeah.
Milo.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, that's so out of place with the rest of the movie.
Yeah.
But it is a great moment.
Yeah, but it's similar to that, where it just seems like really random. They're kind of thrown in there, but I feel like those scenes are what make the movie for me.
Yeah.
You know.
All right. I got another weird thing.
Sure.
Okay. So I don't think we've ever talked about this on the podcast, even though we've had this podcast for like 12 years now. I don't think we ever talked about this, but are either of you familiar with like there's like a literary thing called Chekhov's gun or Chekhov's rifle?
Mm-mm.
No.
Okay. I'm going to get nerdy for a second here. So there's this thing, and like I think originally it was for plays, but it's often in novels or movies as well. And it's the idea that if like something is really prominently shown in the first act, it's going to come back around later and play a part in the third act.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
It's called Chekhov's rifle because if you enter a scene and there's like a really obvious rifle in the room,
Yeah.
they didn't put that there as decoration.
Right.
At some point, someone's going to use that rifle.
Yeah, I didn't know
Okay.
there was a term for that, but yeah,
Yeah. So anyway, I say this because what I love about it is, to me, I feel like they were doing this with the ashtray. Because he comes in and Don's got this whole story like, hey, do you like the Twilight Zone?
Yeah.
And he's like, I got this ashtray. And like they talk it up and really call out this ashtray as if it's some important thing.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
And like, then whatever happens with it.
nothing.
Nothing
Nothing.
is.
Nothing
Okay,
happens with
I
that.
thought you were going to tell me that something did happen.
No,
with it.
but I think maybe I'm giving them too much credit, but I feel like this was done on purpose.
Yeah,
Where they're like, hey, here's this ash. Because, like, what's the point of him saying it's from this episode of The Twilight? It's like, there's no reason for it.
And there are examples in this movie where there were things like that. Like they show a close up of him taking his contacts out. Then later in the movie, one of the booby traps sprays him in the face with some kind
that's
of crap.
right.
He uses his contact solution and sprays it in his eyes to get the pepper spray or
Great.
whatever it was out. So they were keenly aware of what they're showing people
Okay.
for later on.
That's a good point, because it does explain why he would have something to spray in his eye.
right.
But yeah, I just thought that was great, because like I watch movies in a very nerdy way, and so like I'm watching it and I'm like, oh, they're really playing up this ashtray. So like later on, I don't know how it's going to get used. Maybe he's going to get shot at, and he's going to pull it out from under his shirt, be like, ha ha,
Right.
I had the ashtray under my shirt.
Right.
But no, nothing.
Nothing at all.
It's just this completely throwaway
Yeah.
moment where they talk about this thing that doesn't have anything to do with anything.
Yeah, no, I don't think you're giving them too much credit, because like I said, like they did check all the boxes for, like, with like they made sure they had a reason for him to have contact solution, and they had a close up of him taking out the contact. So,
Yeah.
I mean, they were definitely aware of what they were showing the audience.
Yeah. I just think it's funny. Like, I'm sorry to keep going on this, but I love the ashtray because I'm like, is this even a thing?
Right.
Like, is there a famous episode of Twilight Zone with an ashtray? Like, I have no idea. I don't know what the joke is supposed to be here.
Right.
Like, it's very weird to me.
I think this movie, it has a 5.4 IMDb rating. I think it is criminally, who gave this movie a 5.4? Come on.
Yeah.
Well, apparently the people.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, that's democracy for you, man.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I'm going to be giving it more than that.
Yeah. Democracy.
I think we'll all give it more than that.
Do you guys have a favorite part in this movie? I mean, I wouldn't say it you can't really pick a favorite kill because there's really not.
No, there aren't really kills. I don't know if I have a favorite part or favorite moment. I mean, I love Don coming out of the woods and then
with
like
his pants.
guy with his pants down. Well, they don't show him with his pants
Yeah,
down,
yeah.
but the guy over the radio is like, "There's an old man with his pants down," and then Don does this thing where he's like, "No." I was like, yeah, but that I got another thing. You guys, can I do another thing?
Yeah,
you
you
can
can
go
do
ahead.
whatever you want, man.
Okay, so you guys know this. I didn't say it, so the listeners don't know this yet, but I pre-watched the movie.
Yeah.
So today watching was actually my second time watching it. The first time I watched it, I actually, up until at least 2/3 of the way through, I was convinced that this whole thing was a setup by his producer.
Oh.
Like, she pulls the letter out of the box, and she's like, "Oh, this guy wants to meet you. Here's a check." And then he goes out there and meets the guy. He's got to do the blindfold thing. There's these weird agents in the woods with the radios, but you never actually see them.
Yeah.
So the whole time I'm thinking like, oh, this is something she did to like rebuild his confidence and stuff. Of course, we find out that's not at all.
true.
Right.
But that was like, and that's probably on me. That is probably not on the creators. But that was how I was watching it. I was like, yeah, this whole thing is fake.
I did find it kind of strange that they didn't show the people that were hunting this thing, like
Yeah.
the government, because I don't. Again, I know it goes back to the like not showing everything,
Mm-hmm.
and it somehow made it better, but I don't
Yeah.
know why. Because I mean, he literally comes out the door and is standing next to the truck, and you still don't see him. There's literally somebody in the truck talking to him on a walkie-talkie, and
Yeah.
you still don't see them. And that was just strange to me that he would choose to withhold that. But it, for some reason, it really worked.
I think it
Made me
great.
think. It started giving me like, I started thinking about like Men in Black.
Mm-hmm.
Like the Men in Black, or just like any movie where there's like the secret government. And instead of showing them at all, they choose not to. So your mind kind of creates it based on all these other things you've seen, and the best version of it in your head.
Oh, completely. Yeah, like for me, I'm picturing like the guys from E.T. like
Yes.
in the.
I was gonna say that and I stopped because it's not a horror movie, but you're right.
Yeah, I was picturing the guys in E.T. with the like whatever
Yeah.
biohazard suits or whatever they are. That's what I picture. But I'm fully aware that I don't know. I don't know if these guys are the government. I don't know if these guys are some dumbass college kids who are out in the woods.
Yeah.
I don't know who this group of people is. All I know is they have access to walkie-talkies.
Not only that, but going even further, when he's listening in on that conversation, like they're talking, they have number like as HC1 or something like that.
Yeah.
Like and they're like, how much do you know? So there's this thing going on that the government knows about.
Yeah.
And I don't know if they're things that the government, they created in a lab that escaped and they're trying to capture them. You never find any of this out.
That's definitely what it implies, is that it's like a science experiment that went wrong, but they never say that.
Yeah. So I just love that. And none of it's
Yeah.
explained. I mean, it can either, with a movie like this, it can either be really frustrating and disappointing, like just like you feel like not fulfilled by the end, or like in this case, it's not amazing, but it really works.
Yeah.
And I think that's a huge part of what I struggle with because I'm not good at that. And I think the design of this movie was that you were supposed to finish it off in your brain.
Yeah.
You know, like they weren't showing you a ton of stuff in this movie because they wanted you to make it what you wanted it to be, which is a really, really clever way of making a movie.
Yeah.
And I don't think you see it a lot. Maybe you do. Maybe that's a whole subgenre that I don't know about. But I thought that was really, I think that's clever. But I also struggle with it because I just wanted to see like, okay, what was the deal with?
Yeah.
I don't want to figure it out. You know, I don't want to dream up that solution in my head. I want to see what their vision of it was.
That's a good point. And maybe this is not accurate, but I wonder if this is where the difference between Jason and I who watch garbage and you who does not watch garbage, maybe this is where it comes in because like we have seen these horror movie tropes hundreds of times. So we know like what we're supposed to see, what we're supposed to expect. And so like Jason's been saying, like your brain fills in that gap because it's like, oh, here's what happens in this moment. And your brain hasn't, Eric, hasn't done that yet.
Yeah.
Right,
You haven't
exactly.
reached the level of garbage where your brain fills that in.
Yeah.
Like where it takes the garbage movie and turns it into a good movie in your head. Like,
Yeah.
pretty much.
Yeah, but you reach a point where like you've seen so much where like you see connect even if they're not intentional. You know, you start seeing connections, like, oh yeah, this is like how it was done here.
Yeah, or you start to pick up on those. What do you call them?
I call it tropes.
No. The things where they make a point of showing you something because it's
the Chekhov's rifle.
Yeah, like that. Like I know I do that a lot now. I'm like, oh, okay, so apparently this is what's going to happen later in the movie, and then it happens. It's fun when I'm watching movies with Aaron. I always do that.
Yeah,
and then I'm about, I would say 70% accurate usually.
Oh yeah, like it the camera angle will change, so make sure that the audience know, like they let you in on that joke.
Yes. Yeah.
You know, so once you're aware of it, it's there for you to play along.
Did either of you, when you watched this the first time, have the feeling that... So one of the things that was going through my head is once the booby trap stuff all started happening,
Yeah.
I almost felt like Don had set this all up to put whatever the main character's name, Alan, into that booby trap scenario. Like this, because he hated him. And instead of there being an actual monster, I thought maybe he was just like, I'm going to give this guy a run for his life.
No, I don't think so.
I never walked. I mean,
I think he's just like, this was his plan to try to capture this thing. And he was obviously not really cared too much about what could go wrong. And
yeah, I think that's a fair interpretation, but it never had occurred to me that Don clearly didn't like Alan, but I didn't think that he wanted to hurt him in any way.
Yeah, it just seemed like once it launched into that part of the movie, I thought, okay, we're never going to see a monster. Because at that point, we hadn't seen the monster, and then it's when he's in that truck or whatever, and the monster's hand comes up on the window. Yeah. Then I'm like, oh, and now we're going to add the monster into the equation. Yeah. I was like, wow, they're just taking this everywhere.
No, I didn't. I took it at face value. I took it as Don's coming home drunk, and he's accidentally activated the house. I took it straight.
So ratings on this one?
Yeah.
You guys ready for ratings?
Go first.
I feel like I'm actually going to be the lowest this time.
Really?
Yeah, I know, right?
I'm surprised because you've been really talking this
I
up.
know. My ratings make no sense.
They don't. Neither do mine.
See,
so.
And this is the problem too. Is in the past few movies, I've been teetering up in my ratings, and I don't want to go much higher than I am
because you don't want to be rating them higher than us.
Yeah, but I do think like this movie was better than any of the other movies we watched.
Wow, any?
I think so.
Wow.
Wow.
Okay. Yeah. So I'll go first, just because I do think I'm going to be on the low end. When I watched it the first time, I ended up giving it a 6. And the reason I did that was because I think it was partially my mindset, was just because I was like, I felt like the booby trap thing kept on a little longer than it needed to.
Mm-hmm.
I'll agree with that.
This time, because I was familiar with what was coming and the pacing and stuff, I'm willing to go up on it, and I'll bump it up to a 7. So, I know, I've spent the last hour being like, here's all these great things they threw in there.
Well, you've been pretty forthright about saying that to get above a 7,
Yeah.
for you to rate a movie above a 7, it has to be pretty spectacular. And you don't really give out 10s.
And that's the thing. I would love to give this movie a 7.5, an 8. I would love to. The only reason I think that I can't do it is just because I don't like Alan. Like he's carrying the movie, and I don't like him. And again, maybe that's actually a credit to the actor. Maybe the actor is just that good at being unlikable. But unfortunately, because he's the guy that I, like it or not, have to root for through the whole thing. Yeah, I'm not a fan of him. Even in the very end, I'm like, I honestly don't give a shit if he makes it out.
Right.
So I think that's why I have to keep it relatively lower and stick with my 7, just because I never connected with him. I never, even when he tries at the end to redeem himself and be like, look what I suffered for this. Yeah. I still don't care. So
yeah, I am 100% like in agreement with you, and my rating is same 7.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Like that's what I was planning on, is a 7, because I think there were parts in this movie that it felt like it dragged a little bit for me.
Yeah, I would agree.
And in retrospect, and after hearing Gavin talk about Alan, and I hate Alan too, I think he's the reason for why it dragged. Because as soon as Don is gone, it's almost like I stopped caring about what happens to this guy. And there are certain things like, we still want to know with the monster. We still want to see, okay, is he gonna see this thing, what's gonna happen? But I do think like Alan's lines weren't very good. It was just like his character, and I don't know if it's the actor or if it's just how it was written. All the good stuff was given to Don, and Alan was just not a very likable character. And so the scenes with him alone without Don in it kind of seemed to drag for me, when he's sitting there talking in his microphone and stuff. Like, I don't care. So that's the only thing that would bring it down for me. Had they done a little more character development on Alan and made him even a little bit more charismatic, funny, whatever, it would have something redeeming. Yeah. Then I probably would have given this a higher rating. But I do think that the IMDb rating is at 5.4 that's ridiculous.
That's too low.
And for what they had to work with, probably. Yeah. I mean, it should have been. I mean, they should have a special flag for IMDb. Like, this is a low budget flick, so this should be way higher than that, because what they did is amazing.
What's funny about that is actually when I look at horror movies, anything over, I would say this where it says 5.4. That's about kind of the cutoff for me. Like, if it's 5.4 or above, it's probably going to be decent.
Yeah.
Like, if it's like 4.9 or lower, usually
that's where it gets bad.
Yeah, that's where it's like there's probably nothing here that we're gonna like.
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons that I've really liked transitioning over to Letterboxd, is because IMDb back in the day, you only had an IMDb account if you were seriously into movies, and now everybody has access.
Yeah.
And Letterboxd is the new super nerdy movie thing, and you'll see that difference, because the IMDb general population is the Marvel movie fandom.
Yeah,
and I don't mean that as a knock on them, because I don't mind the Marvel movies, but they're looking for different things. Whereas Letterboxd, they understand that you're looking for different things in different genres. On IMDb, the movie's a 5.4. On Letterboxd, it's a 2.9, but their scale is only a 5 scale.
Oh, okay.
So when you correct for it, it's a 5.8.
Okay.
So that's still low.
I still think that's low.
That's still low, but you can see that they adjust it upward, because it's the target at Letterboxd is different.
All right, so I'm going to, first of all, I'm going to disagree with you on both of you.
Wow.
So
yes, bring it.
I did not hate Alan.
Really?
Not really, no.
Huh.
It's that's the kind of podcaster I strive to be.
No, this is the thing with Alan. I thought Alan was extremely unspectacular. You said we lost 2 listeners after Quigley?
Yeah.
We're going to lose a lot
God
more
rest their
listeners
souls.
after I say this.
Oh,
Okay.
Wow. Well, they made it
So
this far.
I'm going to use a very well-known show as an example for this. So I feel like Alan was just boring. And I equate this to Seinfeld. Because when I watch Seinfeld, if you cut George and you cut Kramer out of Seinfeld, it's just a dumb show. Because Elaine, Jerry, they're not funny on that show.
Huh.
They're just boring.
I
think that's the way Alan is in
I don't
that
mind
show.
Elaine, but I will 100% agree that I think Jerry Seinfeld is not funny, even on Seinfeld.
Yeah.
He's not funny.
And so... And
I think that show was built by the supporting characters and the jokes by Larry David. I think Seinfeld sucks.
Does Seinfeld have a laugh track?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then that's why.
Yeah. So...
They're telling you when to
Sorry, Jerry Seinfeld.
Yes.
You suck.
And I don't hate Jerry Seinfeld. I
You
just
do,
didn't
by
think
the
he
way.
was funny in that show.
Get-
And I love the show
Yeah.
Seinfeld, but
Yeah.
I think Jerry Seinfeld sucks.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but you do a great impression of Jerry Seinfeld.
I do?
Yes, you do.
No, I don't.
Yes, you do. Yes, you do. I've heard it.
I don't know this.
Really? Oh man, like
What's the deal with bagels?
Yes,
I don't know.
yes,
No, I
that's
don't
exactly
know.
it. You did, but you did it. We were talking about Thundercats,
Oh.
and you did Panthro. You're like,
Oh.
what's the deal with Panthro?
Oh yeah, why is he called Panthro? Is it because he's not wearing any pants?
What does he take his pants off and throw them at you?
I don't know.
Oh, man.
What about
I should have
Lionel?
used something other than Seinfeld because now we're going to go
I
on
can't
for
do
a
the
minute.
voice though. So
But-
Yeah.
Okay, sorry.
But so I felt like Alan was that kind of character where
Yeah.
he was just not spectacular, and they needed Don.
And he was a marine biologist.
Yeah,
just let him do it.
Okay.
They had to have Don to pop up the show and make it better.
Mhm.
And whether that was by design, whether that was Alan's a bad actor, I don't know. But I don't think when I watched it, I was not offended by him in any means. I just don't think that he lit the screen up or anything like that.
I was highly
That's
offended.
fair. Yeah, I guess I don't know if I've used the word offended. It's just,
Yeah.
but you have to at least like your main character.
Yeah.
Now, you don't have to think he's funny or
You have to-
handsome or
But
spectacular.
you have
but
to
it-
not want him to die.
yeah.
See, and I didn't have that
he didn't
feeling.
cross the
He was
threshold.
just really, I
Yeah.
was really impartial to him.
If Don's out of the movie and then the final 15, 20 minutes, whatever it is, you're just like, well, I'll just sit through this, I guess.
Yeah.
This guy is whatever. Like,
Yeah.
that's not great. Like, you should
No, and
at that point, you should have become invested in him.
And really, when they killed Don, they should have brought in a supporting something to make that end part better. But okay, moving on past Alan.
Yeah.
The other thing, and I think you said it, that I totally agree with is that the booby trap part went too long. And the reason why I say that is because of all the segments of this movie that I felt were there, that booby trap part was the most uninteresting to me. And I would have liked to see more of the monster or more of the the killing in the basement at the beginning of the movie. I would have liked to seen them go a little further with those two pieces than to have that booby trap thing going on. Because that was just, I mean, it was fine, but it was like, whatever,
Yeah. My only issue with the booby trap thing is like he gets hit with the harpoons or spears or whatever they are, and he manages to pull through that. He gets sprayed in the face, he pulls through that, and it's like for a while it's cool because like he's getting beaten down, but he's fighting back, and then eventually it's just like, all right, you're just gonna throw more stuff at him, and it's like the gag runs its course, but it keep going after you've already kind of been like, okay. So that's just me. But yeah, I don't dislike it, but it does feel like they could have cut maybe a minute out of that. Very little, but just a little.
What do you think would have happened if he opened the fridge?
I don't know. And that's another thing. What would have happened if he opened the fridge?
Again, they'd leave it to your imagination.
Right.
And it's
but
clever.
but okay, so what's your rating?
So my rating is going to be, I'm going to go with a 6.5 on this. And the
Okay.
reason I think this might have been, I mean, this was probably at least top 3 movies we've ever watched. And I think I've given more movies that we've rated a higher rating. But what I was disappointed with, this movie is a great watch, but the thing I was disappointed with was that they had a lot of good things going here, and I think there was a lot of opportunity to make this movie perfect, and this movie wasn't perfect.
Yeah,
and everything was set there for it to be perfect, but the way they decided to do it, I think it just turned out to be good.
Do you, Gavin, I know you do a little more research than I do or Eric on these movies. Did the director, did you see what the director is, other things he's done?
Pretty much nothing.
Pretty much. Okay, so that's probably a great first.
The writer-director are a team of brothers.
Okay.
And they have one other movie on their credits, which I don't know how easy it is to track down. Like, it's nothing you've ever heard of. Mm-hmm. So this is probably their first movie that got any attention.
Okay. So, I mean, this might be just like their first attempt out the door. And, and it's a damn good first attempt.
Oh, yeah.
You know, so maybe,
Yeah, that's, putting it in that context, like, the writer-director, like, they're new. They're fresh. Mm-hmm. The main actor, the guy who plays Alan, this is his only acting credit. Like he has no other movies, not even as like guy number 2, eating soup, like nothing. And the guy who plays Don has some. It's primarily nothing. He had bit parts here and there in low budget movies, but he's the only one who really has a track record. Which shows. I think he clearly, I would hire him if I was looking for an actor.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would definitely give them more credit just because of the fact, like, they are not, nobody here is like super experienced, and they made every dollar count. I don't know what the budget was, but it shows that they used everything to its fullest.
Yeah.
And this would be like, I would go as far as to say, and you guys can disagree with me, but like we talked about, I think, was Terra Firma our last episode?
Was it?
Yeah. We talked about just how good Lloyd Kaufman.
I don't think it was.
Really?
I think our last one was Never Too Young to Die.
You're right.
Oh, shit, you're right.
Yeah. But anyway,
that's right.
We talked on Terra Firma, we talked about how good Lloyd Kaufman is at what he does. And I really feel like these guys, give them a couple more movies, and they're on
they're ones to watch, I think.
Yeah, they're on the same level, man, because they did a very good job in this. There was just, I think my biggest disappointment with this movie is just what it could have been.
Yes. Yes.
And that,
I think
that's 100%. A really, really good problem to have.
Yeah.
If somebody's biggest complaint is that, wow, this was a good movie, but it could have been a lot better.
Yeah.
That's a great thing to have. That's a great problem to have.
I think you're 100% right on that. Like, this could have been a perfect, amazing movie.
Yeah. So
I completely agree as well. Like my issues with it are minor.
Yeah,
they're really minor. Mm-hmm. But if you had just done it in a different way, and and I don't want to scold them. Like, it's not like I know what the hell I'm doing, but
yeah.
So we have no movie selected, but I'm going to say that it's my turn to select a movie.
I think,
I don't know the name of the movie that I'm selecting, but I'm just going to tell everybody, if we can find these guys' other movie, I want to tandem it with.
Oh, okay,
one.
Cool.
So if we can find that, but
what's the other one called?
I'd have to check.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
We're going to have to look it up and see if we can get it. But if that is not possible, Gavin, it would be your selection. Jason.
No, this was my selection.
So it would be your selection, Gavin.
Okay.
What do you got in
place? If we don't find the other one, the next one I want to do is called Some Guy Who Kills People.
Okay. All right. So there you go. You have it. We will either do this brother tandem's other movie for the next one, or whatever Gavin just said.
Yeah.
So stay tuned for that. Please don't be offended by my comments about Jerry Seinfeld. Seinfeld is a great show, and we love it.
Yes.
It's just that, it was just an example, and...
So just one, I got in here in time, so we will be watching their other movie. It's called Home with a View of the Monster, and it's available on Freevee and Tubi.
Awesome.
So that we can do that.
What did that one get? for IMDb rating.
Same, actually.
Okay.
Oh, so it's probably just as good. All right.
Nice.
All right, so that'll be the next movie. We will catch you on the next episode. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in.
Thanks for tuning in to Hobbs and Horror Movie Review Podcast. Join us in 2 weeks for another exciting movie review.